some few questions which I might pose for members also to internalize and see. Why is it happening like this? One wonders, today we came to Parliament and we are thankful you served us with tea. I did not see anywhere where you served us coffee. There was nothing like any tin of coffee. It was strictly tea. And now one wonders, the tea which is not valued, which is not even promoted to be taken, to be drunk by Ugandans, it is the one which is served in Parliament, and it has never been promoted anywhere. So, Honorable Chair, then government gave us seedlings. We appreciate. They gave Ugandans seedlings, and all Ugandans planted, including myself, because they were saying they are trying to empower us to make sure that we can also benefit economically. Now, one wonders, after giving all these tea seedlings to Ugandans to make them even uproot whatever they had, then after planting and at the side time of harvesting, government is abandoning the farmers not to see there. Another question, Honorable Chair, what I want honorable members to ask the team from Ministry of Agriculture. What does it take to put in place a policy that has been drafted? How much money do they need from you, members of Parliament, to allocate to them just produce a policy that can regulate our tea sector? Honorable members, we are not asking a lot from this government of ours. Imagine asking for a policy to regulate. And that's why some of us were doubtful when they were saying they are taking tea to that sector. If you've married one wife and you failed to satisfy that woman, and now you coffee, and you want to marry the third, the fourth wife, and you're saying it's because you're taking Mukama na Yamba, how strong are you? So they failed to regulate us, the tea sector, to make sure that we can perform. So we are not certain. Right, Honorable Chair, as I conclude, whatever we are asking, for example, the fertilizers, as farmers, for us, usually we use it to buy a fertilizer, just 50 kg, at 70,000. But right, Chair and honorable members, currently, fertilizer, 50 kg, NPK, it goes as far as 180, some you can get it at 120, 140, so it has doubled, and you cannot do anything with the tea unless you put in inputs to make sure that you can harvest. And instead of singing the PDM, for us who are tea farmers, because these places are economically dwelling on tea, how I wish the PDM was converted into providing fertilizers and acaricides such that we can perform. Honorable Chair, I think we are so happy that we are before you, and we are very hopeful that our prayers are going to be heard. But lastly, Chair, in Parliament, I remember when government came up and said it was going to intervene by requesting for a supplementary, that was in March 2024, to bail out farmers. Now the question, one wonders, when we are even appropriating this year, we appropriated for even companies to set up pharmaceutical companies that they are not even owned by government, they are owned by individuals. So now the question is, for us as farmers, that they promise to give like a subsidy.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
akakulira ebyobusuubuzi oba trade and tourism, ng'ensonga ze tuyina ng'abantu ezituleetedde ekizibu nti abantu baffe gavumenti yakeera n'etuwa endokwa tusobole okusimba amajaani ng'abantu abava mu western oba abannayuganda, ng'ekirime kyaffe tuzze nga tukyenyumirizaamu ng'abantu baffe tukifunamu. Tusomedde ku majaani, tusomeseza abaana, bwe tulwala esente ezituzjanjaba mu gavumenti mukimanyi teri ddagala, tukozesa sente zaffe okugenda mu ddwaliro okulabika nga tusobola okufuna obujjanjabi. Abaana tubatwala mu masomero ne tusasula. Nolwekyo gavumenti yasalawo ne yeesuulirayo gwa naggamba. Ekitongole kyaffe yakiteeka wansi w'ekitongole kya agriculture, wano gye baatutte ekitongole ky'emmwanyi, naye nga tuzze nga tusaba baleete etteeka erisobola otuyamba ffe ng'abalimi b'amajaani, okutuyamba nti omutindo gwaffe gubeere waggulu. Kubanga kati bw'oba otunuulidde ffe bwe tugenda mu katale e Mombasa, amajaani agaffa g'e Uganda kubanga omutindo gwa wansi nnyo, batuwa ssente eziri wansi wa $1. Kakati ate tetusanga bannaffe ab'e Rwanda ne babawa $6. Ate nga n'osanga ono abadde e Kabaale muliraanwa w'e Rwanda bamuwadde ssente eziri wansi wa $0.8 oba wansi wa $1. Nolwekyo tusaba gavumenti tuzze nga tuyamba. Kati kiro y'amajaani yakatuuka ku nusu 2 awamu 15. Olwano anoga amajaani gaffe bwe batuwa 2 yatwala 15. Nze kati omulimi nesigaza nusu 5 kwenzija ez'ebijumusa n'ebirala byonna. Nolwekyo enyiike tulina nnyingi ng'abannayuganda, kati kyova olaba twasabye Parliament etuwulirize era ne batuwuliriza, ensonga zaffe tuziwaddeyo. Kye tusaba gavumenti, twagala eryo etteeka lye batadde mu briefcase okumala ebbanga lyonna ne batta amajaani gaffe nga tetuyinza kuyambibwa, twagala eveeyo etuwe etteeka erisobola okuturegulatinga ng'abantu tusobole okuleeta omutindo gw'amajaani gugende waggulu. Ekirala, fertilizer, bino bye tukozesa ebijumusa byonna bya bifu, bakuwa ebintu nga byagwako akatale, n'abo babituguza ng'ebintu tebikola. Ne gavumenti through UNBS etudde teyagala kumanya, tuteekamu ssente zaffe ne bifa ate nga bya bbeeyi. Tusaba gavumenti etukwatireko etuleetere fertilizer omulungi, ate kati fertilizer ensawo bwe bali ku $14,000 tuweeko ekitundu tusobole okweddabulula tudde waggulu. Zensonga zaffe ze tuleese. Amazima ga Katonda mu ggulu tulinga bannabyabufuzi. Mwe bannamawulire mukimanyi bulungi nti munnabyabufuzi kugenda mu banka nti bamuwole kiba kizibu, kubanga bakimanyi tuli banyazi, bamanyi tetulina ssente, bamanyi obuvunaanyizibwa tebuliiwo, era sovola basiiba nga batuddusa wano ku Parliament nga baagala tukwata ng'amabanja gatuli mu bulago. Kati kyekimu nti bw'ogenda mu banka n'ogamba nti oli mulimi w'amajaani oba olina factory y'amajaani, baagaanira ddala bakugoba, kubanga amajaani tebali sure nti ssente ze bagenda okuwa ogenda kuzizza mu banka ekole amagoba. Ekyokulabirako, twakaweza emyezi 7 ffe abalimi b'amajaani nga tuwa factories tezitusasula. Kakitegeeza bw'oba olina looni tulina bw'ogenda okuzzaayo ssente zaabwe buli mwezi nga bwe bakyetaaga. Nolwekyo tebatuwa tulinga omuntu gwe bagamba gwe badeclaringa nti ali bankrupt. Omusajja bwe bamugamba nti tokyayina ssente, oli bankrupt, oli mwavu, n'omukyala tabamukkiriza kuwasa.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
That is in the media, there is a lot of bashing on the Parliament of Uganda. But by you presenting your petition, it shows you have the confidence that this institution with your representation, you can have justice or you can have action on what you need. My second observation is also related to your observation, which is in the conclusion, that the global tea market depression is a fact. I think this is very important to know that it's a combination of dynamics. So I would have been surprised if you came and started bashing government as a cause of everything, or even to the extent that maybe a political leader has stolen your tea. I think this is a very good observation, and I want to thank you for having that kind of an understanding that there is that linkage of external factor in relation to global tea market. Now, my third observation is on the quality. I had an opportunity, I traveled with the budget committee, and I think, Honorable Chair, you are there, in Mombasa, where we are told they mix Ugandan tea, mainly with that of Kenya and Rwanda, and package it. Now, if our tea is of poor quality, why are they call it branding, or why are they using Ugandan tea in branding and then they package? So is the question, that are we totally, do we have really total bad or poor quality? So we need to, why? Because something bad will not be accepted to be branded in your quality. I want to hear you about that. And I'm not saying I'm ruling out there are no poor methods of post-harvesting or what that may affect the quality. But I don't want us to have that picture that our tea is of poor quality. Why is it used in breeding? Two more. Now, is it possible for you to provide a contribution of tea to Uganda export earnings in recent years? And I'm raising this because people have been making an argument for tourism, and correctly so, that you see, we need to invest more in tourism, because before COVID, tourism had demonstrated as the highest foreign exchange earner. And you see statistics, you would see it, that this is a way to go. Now, if we can have statistics to show what tea has been contributing to our economy, then you would have an argument that, look, before this depression, tea was bringing this amount of money to the Ugandan economy to support the budget. Why should we not support this product, which over the years has demonstrated that, because one of Uganda's now challenge is income. My colleagues know when we are making the budget, sometimes our expenditure side is very difficult to match our expenditure proposals with the income. So we need statistics to demonstrate that, look, this is one of the key 5 or what export earners, leave alone the recent depression of the last 2 or 3 years. Then you'd have an argument why a government or why Parliament should vote for money to go into subsidy. Without that statistics, it will be very difficult to convince Parliament that this is something that needs a subsidy. Finally, on regulation, from your presentation, you touched on the issue of regulation. But I want you also to know that there is policy shift, and it is real. Some people may be in self-denial, but it is real. There is a policy shift that regulation in government, rationalization has a very important impact on how regulation is going to be done. We have already passed some of the laws, whether you like it or not, that regulation will be done under the mother. Now, apart from the policy, which in your argument you are saying should be fast-tracked, and I would agree with you, why should the policy, some policies actually don't need to come to Parliament. Some are handled by Cabinet, others come to Parliament. What does it take? I agree with you. We can fast-track the policy which is in draft to Parliament or Cabinet. Now, apart from the policy, which will be handled by the relevant department in the Ministry of Agriculture, because rationalization has already pressed you there. What exactly do you want under that department whichever department will be designated, what exactly would you want to be done? Because from our side, if we are going to present the rest of Parliament, we need to be specific that, look, you need to fast track the policy, but you need also to do A, B, C, D in the short term, in the medium term, under a relevant department of Igara. Chair, it took long, but I thought I should give this exposition. You know, my background as a professor.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
From the tea growing areas to raise our matters as Parliament. And once we raise our matters now, sometimes the implementation is not for Parliament. Even you coming here, it's Parliament. They have given you a listening ear, you're presenting. Now, here for some time, I've been a parliamentary commissioner. The way we handle business is that when it is tea farmers' issues, we let the tea farmers take lead, like you have seen Honorable Mbwa. When it's workers' issues, we let the workers do it, the worker MPs. When children and youth, the youth MPs. The fishing communities, we let the fishing do it. Mining, we let the miners do. It's only on coffee that we got challenges that people who are not coffee farmers wanted to speak on our behalf and we said no. But for tea, I want to thank Parliament. Now, the few observations. Why do you think that Rwanda is making more money, is harnessing more from tea than Uganda, as stated by your own selves? Then two, these are questions for clarity purposes. Did you say that on average, farmers have not been paid for their green leaf for an average of 7 years? I mean, pardon? For 7 months, that they have not been paid for their green leaf for an average of 7.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
Is that true or false? Is it true? Yeah, you can answer if you want.
It was from the processor.
Okay, then you have to.
So he will answer.
That the government gave tea farmers tea seedlings and later abandoned the sector. Is that true so? Yes. Because that would mean that government is making a loss. That you're giving tea farmers seedlings, which you procure, but that farmers are getting nothing out of these tea seedlings, and so you're losing on the money that you used to procure tea seedlings, but also on your farmers not gaining from it as government. The other concern is that you said that 50% of the farmers in Toro have abandoned their tea gardens. Is that true? You made a statement to the effect that by growing tea, you make the tea farmers remain in the money economy. Is that because tea is paid monthly and so somebody earns monthly income. That's why you're saying money income. What do you mean by saying by tea farming, farmers remain in the tea economy, which this government has actually been advancing, money economy. The other point is about banks. I want it clarified. You're saying that the banks are saying that it is risky to lend to tea farmers and processors. Is this true, or it is just an allegation? That banks are saying that it is risky to lend to tea farmers and processors. Is that true? Finally, you said you need a parent in government for tea support. That you need a parent in government for tea support. Is that in respect to the tea policy? What do you mean by a parent? What do you mean by a parent in government? And then very finally, by your words, you say that the draft of the tea policy has gone to sleep forever. What do you mean? Has gone to sleep forever? Are you saying government is not taking it as a priority? Are you saying government has abandoned the policy? Because what I know here in government, once the government has an interest in a policy, we shall pass it whether by force, whether it is in the evening or morning, whether it's at night. So why are you saying that government has left this to sleep? Are you saying that the government has no interest in the tea policy? Thank you.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
To regulate you, do you have reasons for asking for anything? You don't have a policy in place, so do you think government knows that you're even there? Because in any case, something that we should demand for first in the first place is to be regulated. There is no way you can ask for fertilizers, you cannot ask for subsidies, you cannot ask for financing when somebody has not regulated you, because that is the basis. So, Honorable Chair, I would request that this be handled urgently. I've been reading a report on social media here where the State Minister Winifred Chakulaga was attending a tea convention and exhibition in Rwanda. And he made a commitment. This was organized by the East African Tea Trade Association. And he made a commitment that they are going to ensure that the national tea policy, comprehensive, is passed as soon as possible. To date, this has not been done. So as a country, do you still value coffee? I've been looking into the statistics. You are competing with maize.
Tea, Honorable. Do they still value tea?
Sorry, tea. I'm sorry, coffee. Coffee has been... Because we are yet to go into the same category as you are. If you start competing with maize and beans, in terms of statistics and earnings to the GDP, this means that we are yet to face a more bigger crisis than this. And if you look into the reports, government still appreciates that tea is facing a very serious crisis. So, Honorable Chair, for me, I would recommend that as a committee, we immediately, I would suggest in front of them that we interface with the Ministry of Agriculture and Trade to update us on how far they have gone with the policy. Two, when it comes to the issue of financing, it is very unfortunate that you cannot access money from either UDB or the Microfinance Support Center. But I presume, this is not politics, I presume you will be asked that have you gotten anything from the parish development model? Because these are one of the, I'm telling you, you must appreciate, these are some of the interventions that government has done in line for help, to helping the agriculture sector. Because you remember, the PDM money reduced the budget for agriculture. PDM, Emioga, all these are interventions to help some of these sectors. So I think as we look through the regulations, we should also push for adequate financing. Because if you cannot access money from banks, what does UDB do? We have that money there. Microfinance Support Center money is there to help you. Why is it that you cannot access it? But all that will come into play if you are regulated. Lastly, Honorable Chair, I want to inquire from this team that has come here, because it all starts with you. Number one, how do we have any form of organization down there in line to how do we liaise with our local governments? Because when you look into how these are handled, it's not a must that everything should come to the ministry, should come to Parliament. What is our relationship with our local governments in line to at least an interface to ensure that some of these challenges are handled? Because when you look at the tea growers, the tea farmers, you, the processors, the brokers, all that is a relationship that you need to build before you come up this side. So, Honorable Chair, for me, I would urgently suggest that if you are to help the tea sector, let us begin with the policy. These others of the fertilizers, if you look at the census, the census report that has been concluded, we are facing the same problems. The agriculture sector, issues of fertilizers cut across board. And your minister made a commitment that for you, they are going to put in place a national organic agriculture policy. A shift from the use of artificial fertilizers to organic. That is also in play. They are intending to take that direction. So if you look at these generic challenges that are faced across board, because fertilizers that cuts up across, even financing itself. Financing has been also a challenge in the coffee sector. It hasn't been for tea alone. So if we push for regulation, could be that can be a point for us to negotiate better for these other requests that we want to make as the tea sector. So, Chair, I want to appreciate them for really boldly coming out to present some of these matters. And Honorable Mbwa, don't stop at this. Continue pushing so that we can have this sector harmonized. But you must also know the big crisis that we are facing as a country. As Honorable Mbwa brings you here, for me, I don't want us to give you false hope. The country is drained financially. You must appreciate that. So let's push for regulations and we'll see how to suffer locally.
Thank you so much.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.
It is desired in the market. So it's heavily focused on how do we improve quality of our tea. And I know Onesimus will also add here later, we are not in the proposed policy asking for the creation of an authority, because we knew a long time ago that that would not be tenable. So even for the time this policy has been in existence, we have not been asking for an authority. So prices, yes. Prices are a factor of both supply, demand, and then some other environmental factors. That includes the economy, it includes the climate, it includes politics. That's how the prices of tea are affected. So they have affected us in many ways. I'll just start with how did they affect the tea industry? It's a pity, actually, the statistics that Professor was asking for has been provided before in several write-ups, and I'll kindly ask Onesmus to bring those up, the statistics on the contribution of tea to the economy. You will bring that up. If there are other figures that you will miss out, I will supplement. How have tea prices been affected? Because first, let's understand tea traditionally is taken as a blend. So anybody who is into the tea business, the value chain starts from, let's forget the nursery and every other thing. Let's say the farmer. The farmer's tea is collected. We have transportation in between. So there is that logistics aspect. The farmer can deliver, or the factory or the processor can collect from the farmer at a shed that must be provided for by the processor. And then that tea is then weighed at the factory and processed. I don't want to go into the details of the processing within the factory. Once it is processed in the factory, the final product is what we call a bulk tea, black tea in our case. That bulk tea, traditionally, again, is then exported to what we also call Mombasa market. Now, the Mombasa market is not a unique market. It's not only for East Africa. Tea all over the world is sold at auctions, in auction centers around the world. But Mombasa is actually the biggest black tea auction center in the world. It's even bigger than Guwahati in India, which is the biggest auction center in India, for instance, where a lot of tea is auctioned. So Mombasa, our tea gets to Mombasa, and then there are two routes that tea takes to get out of there. But from the factory, I am going to dispatch this tea through another transporter, who is most likely not going to be the processor. It's going to be a private contractor. You get to transport these teas. Those who have the whatever, African Global Logistics, those days we had Bolore, Transami, these, you know them. Those will transport our tea. And our tea is consigned, after it goes through all the necessary customs checks, the tea is consigned to a warehouse in Mombasa. So warehouse comes into our value chain. And those warehouses in Mombasa are also owned by Kenyan companies, but they are Kenyan companies that actually rent them from us as Uganda, because Uganda Property Holdings has some of the largest warehouses in Mombasa. So they are being rented by some of the warehousing companies in Mombasa. Then from the warehousing companies, our tea is then assigned to, I would say, the market segment, in which case you either send it directly to a buyer who is in Pakistan, or you will send it to a broker who is responsible for selling it to you in the auction. So majority of it, 90%, goes through the auction. So it goes to a broker. So what I do by assigning the tea, I take out a small sample. This is an operation that the warehouse does on our behalf. They take out a small sample of my Igara tea and send it to 15 brokers that we have in Mombasa. They send a sample, small quantities to 15.
The Electoral Commission is conducting an identification and mapping exercise of persons with disabilities, PWDs, on the National Voters Register in preparation for the 2025-2026 general elections. Village council meetings will be held countrywide from 4th to 13th November 2024 to update the lists of PWDs in your village or cell. At each meeting, lists of identified PWDs will be compiled to ensure no one is left out. If you're a person with a disability, whether already on the National Voters Register or eligible but not yet registered, please participate in this important exercise. This message is from the Electoral Commission.